Z the astrologer here. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the best to worst Venus signs ranked. I have all of the 12 Venus signs here from Aries all the way to Pisces. And let's talk about, what does Venus even represent? Venus is the planet of love that represents beauty and harmony. Venus also rules music, relationships, business partnerships. It influences how we express affection, attract others, and find pleasure in life. So let's break down the best to worst Venus signs. Now, let's just put a disclaimer out there for the sensitive people. There is no such thing as a bad Venus sign. At the end of the day, we have free will, and it all matters how you express your Venus sign. You could have a really great Venus sign and you express it in the worst way. So let's get into it. Let's start with the first of the worst Venus signs to have. I'm sorry, I have to do it to you. Venus in Scorpio. Now, Venus is very uncomfortable in Scorpio. Now, why is that? Scorpio is a sign that is associated with financial complexity and emotional complexity, right? So Scorpio is a financially and emotionally complex sign. Venus is the planet of love and relationships and business partnerships. You don't want emotional complexity and financial complexity when it comes to your personal relationships and business partnerships. You literally don't want that. You want your relationships to be, harmonious. There's a lot of we agree, we compromise, we make things worse. You don't want complexity, right? And when people have their Venus in Scorpio, they tend to be very paranoid, they don't trust people, and they tend to be very self-destructive. But when a Venus in Scorpio native expresses Venus in Scorpio in the best way, in a healthy way, is they learn how to control their intensity and they channel their intensity into something positive. They learn how to form relationships and business partnerships with people that they actually trust. The people that, they've done their homework on this person, and they've come to the conclusion, like, you know what, I can trust this person. This is a good person to marry. This is a good person to do business with. And just make sure you're very discriminatory as far as who you choose to get into a personal relationship with and a business partnership with. As long as you're very discriminatory and you make good decisions when it comes to that department and you can control your intensity, Scorpio is not such a bad Venus sign to have. But having Venus in Scorpio, yes, is a very difficult Venus sign to have. Now, next on the list for the worst Venus sign to have, I have to do it to you, Venus in Aries natives. Venus is extremely uncomfortable in Aries. Why? Aries is a sign about aggression, being selfish, being very masculine, being very reckless. You do things and you don't even think about it. A lot of people who have Venus in Aries, they jump way too quickly into relationships. They jump way too quickly into business partnerships, and then it all comes crashing down. You have to be more thoughtful as far as the personal relationships and business relationships that you get into, because that's what Venus rules. So now, when you're expressing Venus in Aries in the best way, is you learn how to form relationships with people where our selfish needs align, right? Because ultimately that is how you have a healthy marriage and a healthy business partnership, is our selfish needs are in direct alignment and we actually benefit from us both having our selfish needs. Because sometimes you and another person's selfish needs don't align. But when you learn to master your Venus in Aries, is you learn how to form business partnerships and relationships with people where both of our selfish needs and desires, it actually works out best for us. And just make sure that you're not jumping too quickly into situations, because yes, that's how Venus in Aries people can find themselves in bad financial situations, bad relationships, because they jump too quickly into them. So if you have your Venus in Aries, once you can master that, mastering your recklessness and learning how to be selfish but in a positive way, that's when you've mastered having Venus in Aries. Now let's get into the bad Venus signs. Like, it's not as bad as, having it in Scorpio or Aries. Let's get into the bad Venus signs. So the first on the list, pains me to say, Venus in Virgo. Now, why would I consider this a bad Venus sign? Because Virgo is a sign that is very critical, very picky, very particular, very fussy. And Venus is about our personal relationships and business partnerships. So what can happen is when you have your Venus in Virgo is you overly criticize your friends, you overly criticize relationship partners, and you set insanely high standards that nobody can meet, right? A lot of people who have Venus in Virgo, they literally set standards with friends, personal relationships, and business partnerships that nobody can meet. Or what they do is they lower their standards when they shouldn't. They start tolerating things that they shouldn't. So it's either their standards are insanely high or their standards are too low. So this is why I would consider having Venus in Virgo a bad Venus sign. But the crazy part is this is also a good Venus sign to have too if you know how to execute Venus in Virgo properly. The way how you execute Venus in Virgo properly is you learn how to criticize with love. Like, look, I'm criticizing you because I care about you. I want you to be a better person. You don't criticize in a way that just completely turns people off. You learn how to criticize in a healthy way, and you learn how to not be so high strung, so anxious, overly particular, and you learn how to serve people, get good at healthcare matters and serving others and providing services to others. That's when you can overcome having a difficult Venus sign. Now, the next bad Venus sign, which is not worst, it's not as bad as having it in Venus in Scorpio or Venus in Aries, but it's technically bad. It's not okay. The next would be Aquarius, right? Having Venus in Aquarius. The reason why I would put Venus in Aquarius under a bad Venus sign is because Venus is extremely uncomfortable in Aquarius, because Aquarius is the sign of the friend. Aquarius is all about serving humanity. Venus wants to get into personal relationships and business partnerships. Aquarius is more interested in friendship and what's good for humanity and what's good for the team and the network, right? So this is why it can really be uncomfortable, because they tend to, what happens is when people get in relationships with them is they look back and realize, like, you know what, we were better off as friends. I don't know why we even got into a relationship. That's something I used to hear very, very common. And, in my experience as well, dealing with Venus and Aquarius people, is like, yo, we should have just stayed friends. We were better off as friends, right? Yeah, that can be the downside of having Venus in Aquarius, is that you're a great friend, but you're terrible when it comes to like actually maintaining a marriage or maintaining a relationship. It can become very difficult because, yeah, Aquarius is a detached sign, right? How are you going to have a healthy, personal relationship and business partnership when you're so detached? So yeah, now the way how Venus and Aquarius people can overcome this difficulty is you learn how to love people where it's not an overly friendly vibe. Like, you know how to still keep the romance in your interactions, and you know how to be detached, right? That's when you learn how to balance both. Like, okay, I'm naturally a very detached person. I'm naturally more better as a friend, but I can still learn to love without it being a overly friendly vibe. I can still learn how to love people and still be detached from them at the same time. That's when you master the difficulties that come with having Venus in Aquarius. Because a lot of Venus in Aquarius people too, they actually don't like that they're associated with the friend. Like, no, I do want love. I do want a relationship. I don't want to be a situation where I'm just better off as being the friend. Well, then you have to overcome that. You have to learn how to be less awkward and how to not be so detached. That's when you can form healthy business relationships and personal relationships. Now let's get into the okay Venus signs. You're not bad, you're not the worst, but your Venus sign is okay, right? The first one is Venus in Sagittarius. The reason why I would say Venus in Sagittarius is an okay sign is that because it's not as, intense as Venus in Scorpio. It's not as reckless as Venus in Aries, not as critical as Venus in Virgo, not as detached as Venus in Aquarius, but Venus in Sagittarius can be overly obsessed with freedom, right? So they have, they don't have like really terrible qualities, but what makes them okay, having, people who have their Venus in Sagittarius, is they prioritize their freedom over you. Don't ever get it twisted, right? And a lot of people don't like that. And a lot of people can find that difficult to deal with, because what happens is when you have your Venus in Sagittarius is you appreciate people from other cultures. People from other cultures appreciate you. You tend to value people that are highly educated and well-traveled, but you value your freedom so much that can make it difficult to form personal relationships and business partnerships. You're always making your freedom the priority. You're always so in abundance that people even question if you really care about them. Do you really value me? Because it seems like you value your freedom over everything else, right? But yeah, so Venus in Sagittarius is an okay Venus sign. It's not terrible, but it could be better if Venus in Sagittarius people weren't so overly obsessed with knowledge, expansion, and their freedom. So yeah, that's all. Now the next okay Venus sign, Venus in Gemini. Now, why would I say Venus in Gemini is an okay Venus sign? Because like I said before, it's not as bad as having it in Scorpio. Like you're not as intense, you're not reckless like Venus in Aries, you're not overly critical like Venus in Virgo, you're not awkward and detached like Venus in Aquarius, but you can be overly mental, right? People who have their Venus in Gemini can be overly intellectual. They place too much value on intellectual stimulation. Like, for example, Venus in Gemini people get very bored with people. It's hard for them to form connections with people because they get bored so quickly. They'll flirt with like so many different people, and then wonder why they have difficulty in love and relationships, which is what Venus rules, is because it's like, yo, you too busy dating too many people, flirting with too many people, and getting bored with people, right? So that's why I would consider Venus in Gemini a okay Venus sign. Is they're too much of big flirts. They get bored too quickly. They need intellectual stimulation a little too much, but it is a good Venus to have because these people are very intelligent. You'll never get bored with them. They're very funny. They will always have something interesting to talk about, and yeah, they know how to keep the youth and the childlike quality to relationships, right? They're always keeping things young and fresh, always keeping up to date with the current trends. They're always communicating and having something to learn and share with you the things that they've learned. Yeah, Venus in Gemini is a okay Venus sign, right? Not terrible, but it's an okay sign when you have Venus in Gemini. Now let's start talking about the good Venus signs, right? So they're more than okay. This is a really good Venus sign. The first I would start off with is Venus in Cancer. Venus feels right at home in Cancer. Venus feels very comfortable in Cancer. Actually, Venus is considered, it's not exalted, that's Taurus, but right after exalted, that's what Venus in Cancer is, right? Venus in Cancer people are very nurturing. They're great listeners. They make you feel safe. They make you feel protected. They make you feel a part of the family, right? That's what can make Venus and that's what makes Venus in Cancer such a good Venus sign, is these people are very nurturing. They make you feel like family. It's very easy for them to make the people around them feel heard and feel cared for. These are the type of people that will cook. They'll put together family events. Venus loves being in Cancer, right? Because Venus is all about compromise and harmony. And when you put Venus in the sign of family, these people value compromise and harmony with family. They value seeing their friends as family, right? Venus in Cancer is a very good Venus sign. Kudos to you if you have this. But on the downside with Venus in Cancer, sometimes these people can be overly sensitive, overly emotional. They hold on to the past a little bit too much. So yes, so that's the downside to Venus in Cancer, but overall, very good Venus sign. Now, what's the next good Venus sign? I would say Venus in Leo. Why would I say Venus in Leo is a good Venus sign to have? Because Leo is all about passion, romance, dating. The playboy and the playgirl, the girl that, she knows how to court attention and attract the romantic partner that she wants. Venus feels very comfortable in Leo, right? Because Venus is all about personal relationships and business partnerships. And when you put Venus in the sign of Leo, these people, they're very drawn to dramatic and passionate personal relationships and business partnerships. They're good at, making it a business, being creative, right? They're very good at that. They're very good at, making money through being seen, through courting attention, through showing off what makes them the best, right? Leo is all about being the best at what we do. And having Venus there, you really value being the best at what you do. You value passion. You value creativity. You value children. You value romance. These are good things to value, right? Now, the downside of having Venus in Leo is it can make this person an egomaniac when it comes to their friends and when it comes to lovers and their business partnerships. Their ego can become a problem. Yes, Venus rules our relationships, business partnerships, and our friends. Yes, Venus and Leo people, they have massive egos. Especially Venus and Leo women can be some of the most spoiled brat women you'll ever deal with. They need constant attention, they need constant praise, constant validation. And if they don't get it, they're a problem to deal with. Oh my God. Yeah, Venus and Leo women are the women, the high maintenance girls, right? And even if they're not necessarily high maintenance, because they would scoff at the term being called high maintenance, even if they're not necessarily high maintenance, they require a lot of attention, a lot of admiration. Yes, that's Venus and Leo women. That's why I would Venus and Leo regardless, right? Now, as far as the men, Venus and Leo men, they need a lot of praise. They need a lot of admiration. Yes, so that can be the downside of dealing with Venus and Leo people, but they're very passionate, very romantic people, very affectionate. They will shower you with affection, right? So that's what makes Venus and Leo a good Venus sign. Now, the next good Venus sign, Venus in Capricorn. Why would I put Venus in Capricorn under good, right? So it's more than okay, it's good. Venus in Capricorn, I would consider a good Venus sign to have because Venus is all about personal relationships and business partnerships. Capricorn is about success, stability, having a long-term mindset. So when you put the planet Venus of love, relationships, and money into a long-term minded sign, a sign that is focused on success and long-term building, that's a very good combination. Venus and Capricorn people, they value marriage. They value the concept of being with someone older who's more successful. They value the whole concept of building something for the long term, whether that be a business, whether that be their marriage. They're the types to build a business with their spouse. So that's what makes this a good Venus sign, is that if you're dating someone who has Venus and Capricorn, you don't have to worry about them being against marriage because they see the value in that. Like, yeah, not only do we get tax benefits, shoot, we could build wealth together, we could buy more assets because we're putting our money together. Yeah, a Venus in Capricorn native is someone that's really good to build as far as personal relationships and business partnership. They're going to be all for it. You won't have to worry about them not being disciplined. Oh, they will definitely be disciplined and do whatever it takes to facilitate the relationship and the business because that's what Venus rules. Now, on the downside with Venus in Capricorn, and the reason why I would say it's good and not the best, is that the downside with Venus in Capricorn is that it can make these people overly obsessed with status. These people will date. These people can be shallow. Like, they will leave you for somebody who makes more money. They will leave you for somebody who has more status. It can make them be in a situation where they have all these depressing situations surrounding love. It's like all of their relationships are just massive heartbreak and pain and struggles, right? Because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the planet of struggles and where we feel inadequate. So the downsides of Venus and Capricorn is they can feel inadequate when it comes to love, but also too, they're overly obsessed with status. They're overly obsessed with their romantic partner having money and having a business, right? Because Venus and Capricorn women can come off as the gold digger, right? They can, and Venus and Leo women too, these two can definitely come off as the women that are overly obsessed with status and money. So that's why I would say these two, they fall in a good category. But Venus and Capricorn, like I said, the bright side, you won't have to twist their arm for marriage. They're in it for the long haul when it comes to relationships and business, but they can be overly depressing, overly pessimistic and negative, always looking at, their struggles. Woe is me. Look at all these struggles and burdens I have to deal with. That can also be the downside to Venus and Capricorn. Just too obsessed with other people's money, too obsessed with trying to get money from other people. Yeah, that's the downside to Venus and Capricorn. Now, the first of the best Venus signs, Venus in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus feels amazing in Pisces. Now, why is that? Because Venus is the planet of love, harmony, peace, compromise, relationships, business partnerships, beauty, fashion, music, art. And when you put it in an imaginative, spiritual, dreamy sign like Pisces, it's like, wow, I'm at home. This is amazing. Venus and Pisces people are so forgiving. They're forgiving to a fault. Like, even when people do them dirty and people do them wrong, they'll still forgive. Like, you know what? People make mistakes, and it's like, no. But, and also too, with Venus and Pisces people, why this is the best Venus sign to have is they really do see the best in people. When it comes to their friends, relationship partners, business partners, they see the best in you. Like, if a Venus and Pisces person cares about you, they are going to focus on what makes you great. right? They don't want to focus on your negative. They want to focus on everything that makes you amazing, right? If somebody was to tell them something bad about you, they're like, that's not true. That's not true. They would never do that, right? So they see the best in you and they will give you the shirt off your back. They're very selfless, very compassionate, but that can also be a weakness. That can also be the downside to having Venus in Pisces is you're too compassionate. You're too selfless. You're naive. People take advantage of you because you're too kind, right? I see this all the time. And it can also be a downside where Venus and Pisces people, you see the best in people to a fault. You don't see what makes them screwed up, terrible people. You're still looking at all the things that makes them great, completely ignoring what makes them a scumbag, right? Completely ignoring what makes them a scumbag. So yes, so what makes Venus and Pisces people great? Very compassionate, very spiritual, very, selfless, caring people, truly caring people. But the fact that they're so overly caring, that's what makes them get taken advantage of. They're so overly selfless. That's what makes them get taken advantage of. Now, the second on the list of the best Venus sign to have is Venus in Libra. Venus rules Libra, right? So Venus feels right at home in Libra. When you have your Venus in Libra, you put overemphasis on valuing relationships and partnerships. They feel their happiest and their best in a relationship, in a marriage, and in a business partnership. And they treat their friends, it's almost like they're in relationships with their friends too, because Venus rules how we interact with our friends. But yeah, Venus in Libra is a great Venus to have. These people, they're people pleasing, compromising. They just want everybody to get along. Who wouldn't love somebody like that? Who wouldn't love somebody that really values peace? Right? And that's how Venus and Libra people are. And this can be to their detriment, right? Because the downside of having Venus in Libra is you're always trying to be the peacemaker. And that can get annoying. Like, dude, no, this person disrespected me. I'm going to, address it. It's time for a fight. Whereas the Venus and Libra person is like, no. Can we all just get along? And that can get really irritating, right? So even though Venus, in Libra, that's one of the best Venus signs to have. The downside is they're overly concerned with peace to a point where they can be so passive. Even when it is time to fight, it is time for us to stand up for ourselves. They want to make peace. They want to do compromise. They can't make a decision, right? So yeah, so that's the best and worst as far as having Venus in Libra is they really, really value partnership. They really value having peace and harmony with their friends. They value beauty, music, fashion, art, and they're usually good at these things, but they can be passive aggressive, indecisive, and overly concerned with peace when no, sometimes it is time to fight. Now, the last but not least best Venus signs to have, Venus in Taurus. Why? Because Venus also rules Taurus. Not only does Venus rule Libra, Venus rules Taurus as well. Now, Taurus is a sign that is associated with being very grounded, stable, financially and materially secure. So when you put Venus in Taurus, this is perfect, right? We get to value being stable, emotionally stable, financially stable, right? Venus, and not only that, Taurus is associated with pleasure and comfort. So these people really value pleasure. They value comfort. They value engaging in the senses. I knew this one person who had their Venus in Taurus and they were good at pottery. They could make these beautiful vases out of during pottery class and stuff like that. Yeah, Venus and Taurus people are very good with the senses. They love pleasure, they love comfort, they like to feel good, they like to get a massage, they want you to feel good. They'll go eat with you. What? Venus and Taurus people, what? That's the best person to go out to eat with. They know all the good food spots. They know all the good foods to try. And you can count on them to be very predictable, right? Because Taurus is a sign that doesn't like change. So with Venus and Taurus people, you don't have to worry about these people changing. Because how they are is how they are. They like their routine. They like eating the same things. They like doing the same things. Very predictable. And that can be a great quality to have. People appreciate somebody that is predictable, especially when it comes to the planet of love, relationships, business partnerships, and friendships. You want stability. You want someone that doesn't like change because you can count on them to be the same person that you fell in love with, right? Because that's what Venus is, the people we fall in love with, whether it's friendship, fall in love, or relationship, fall in love. We want them to somewhat stay the same and not change on us. And yeah, but now the downside of having Venus in Taurus is you can be lazy, overly stubborn, overly resistant to change, overly possessive, right? So you don't want to be that. You want to be the grounded friend. You want to be the friend that's really good with money, right? You're good at accumulating money and investing money. Yeah, and the friend that emphasizes comfort and pleasure and making money and feeling good, but not the friend that's overly stubborn, overly possessive, just stuck in the mud, don't want to change their ways, even though they got messed up ways. That's not the Venus in Taurus you want to be. All right. So yes, so that's all the Venus signs from worst to best, from best to worst. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you comment down below and let me know if what I've said about your Venus sounds about right or is it BS. Please let me know. I won't get offended. All right. I'll see you next time.